On the 25th of March, 2024, at approximately 3:30 p.m, a call was received reporting an active assault in the 200 block of Carbon Street in Lehighton Borough, roughly 75 miles northwest of Philadelphia. When law enforcement arrived on the scene, they found 59-year-old Edward Whitehead suffering from a severe puncture wound on the side of his head, along with cuts to his head and arms and defensive injuries to his hands. Edward Whitehead was promptly transported to St. Luke's Hospital, Carbon campus. However, he tragically succumbed to his injuries and passed away. Upon reviewing surveillance footage from the area around the property, police observed an individual dressed entirely in black and wearing a scream mask, leaving through the back door of Edward's residence.
Edward Whitehead was struck with a chainsaw and a knife, and as Fox 56's Taylor Whartonby tells us, a masked neighbor is now charged in his death.
Who was this man, and had this real-life Ghostface attacked Edward Whitehead and then left him to die? As investigators reviewed the surveillance footage closely, they observed that, after exiting Edward's house, the man disappeared into a neighbouring residence, allegedly belonging to 30-year-old Zach Moyer. Trooper Petrosky said,
"At the time of the crime, the suspect was wearing an all-black outfit consisting of a mask of the Scream character from a movie from a few years ago. He was wearing this during the commission of the crime."
He also added, "The victim and the suspect live in close proximity of each other. Their history is something we won't get into. This was not just a random attack. They did know each other." In response to the incident, police advised the community to remain indoors as they proceeded to apprehend Zach Moyer. One neighbor recounted,
"I feared for my grandchildren at the time because we were all told to stay in the house, keep your doors locked. My granddaughter was just walking home from school when the cops came flying. She's in 3rd grade. She was petrified, and more kept coming. I'm like, oh my God, this must really be bad. But no, it's just a sad situation."
Another neighbor said,
"Well, it was very sad. I just don't understand the world we live in right now. It's kind of scary."
Lehighton Borough Police surrounded the home on Carbon Street and called for state police backup around 3:34 p.m. During the standoff, Zach communicated with officers by holding up a notebook to a window. According to the police report, one note read, "Ed murdered women and kids," and another read, "Eddie Jr. murdered women and kids last summer." Eventually, Zach emerged voluntarily in a red hoodie after communicating with troopers on the scene, all of which was caught on camera from a neighbor across the road. Trooper Petrosky said,
"Through investigation, we're able to develop a suspect. The suspect's house had a perimeter set up around it, and through successful negotiations, the suspect exited and was taken into custody without incident. He eventually came out. There was communications going on between him and troopers on scene, and eventually he did open the door himself and exit on his own will."
According to court documents, while in custody, Zach initially told police that he had worn the Scream costume and armed himself for the purpose of scaring Edward Whitehead. However, reports later indicated that he revised his statement, claiming that he had gone to his neighbor's home with the intent to harm Edward, whom he believed to have committed serious crimes. The records further indicated that Zach allegedly entered the home of 59-year-old Edward Whitehead, attacking him with a chainsaw and stabbing him in the head with a knife. After the attack, Zach reportedly returned to his residence, concealed the chainsaw in the attic, placed the knife in a drawer, and changed his clothes. He then began watching a movie, waiting for the police to arrive and arrest him. Troopers noted that Zach claimed Edward had been involved in multiple murders. Authorities, however, stated that they did not find these allegations credible and had no plans to investigate them further. According to Pennsylvania court system records, Edward Whitehead had never been charged with murder. Trooper Petrosky confirmed that these claims were not something they were looking into. The records also suggested that Zach and Edward had a disagreement earlier that day. A neighbor reported that Zach had displayed the note on his window stating, Ed murdered women and kids. Eddie Jr. murdered women and kids last summer. During interviews, Zach's sister informed troopers that he had expressed a desire to harm his neighbor about a week prior to the incident. A search of Zach's residence, conducted under a warrant, uncovered the knife in a drawer, the battery-operated chainsaw in the attic, and the black costume and mask. 30-year-old Zach Moyer was subsequently charged with 1 count of criminal homicide. District Judge Eric Schrantz arraigned Zach Moyer on homicide charges, remanding him to Carbon County Jail without bail, according to Pennsylvania court records. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for the 3rd of April, 2024. As of October 2024, there is no available information on the outcome of this preliminary hearing, and I can't find out whether Zach Moyer's trial and sentencing have taken place. Following Edward's murder, his niece Megan Bernosky said, "Mind-numbing, I don't think anybody has truly had it all sit in at this point. What actually occurred and what happened, it's been horrible. I think it's safe to say that we want absolute justice for our uncle. He deserves that." Edward's family described him as a kind, loving man who had a distinctive laugh. Another one of his nieces, Jennifer Whitehead, said, "You never knew if he was stressed or frustrated when you were with him. He just was a rock to a lot of people, and I wish people got to see that of him. I just don't know what kind of people in this world that could do that. That's the sad thing." Meanwhile, the day following Zach Moyer's arrest, his father, Francis Moyer, was also taken into custody for allegedly harassing members of Edward Whitehead's family. Several months later, after his release, Lehighton Borough Police responded to another call involving Francis Moyer on the 14th of May, 2024, when a woman on the 200 block of Carbon Street reported feeling harassed. According to the affidavit, the woman stated that Francis was standing near his doorway, staring at her in a way that made her uncomfortable. While on the phone with police, she reported that Francis began waving a ghost mask in his window, allegedly the same mask Zach had used in connection with Edward Whitehead's homicide. Police described the act as an attempt to intimidate a witness, as the woman had been identified as a witness in the homicide case and was instructed to have no contact with Francis. Upon investigation, officers located the mask a few feet away from the window in the dining room. Francis Moyer was subsequently arrested and charged with witness intimidation. However, once again, limited information has since been released regarding this incident or its outcome. I know this case was a bit of a shorter one, but when I found out about it, I was shocked at how unsettling and scary the world can sometimes be. At the end of the day, Edward Whitehead, who was a Navy veteran, lost his life, and he left behind a widow and 2 sons. My heart goes out to them and to the rest of his friends and family, and as always, rest in peace, Edward Whitehead.